So balance has become an important word. It is an important word, and it's become more important recently for the COGCC. And I'm trying to figure out how we balance being one of the leanest states in the country with one of the states with the highest incidence of the munchies in the country. So I want to add my thanks to Garfield County and Kirby Wynn and Colorado Mesa University for putting this on again. I think I've been here for all of them. It started very small in a kind of dark, poorly lit room over in a different building and has grown quite a bit. I also want to thank, in particular, the local government officials who are here. I think this is a great venue and opportunity for interaction and hopefully some information education. I know Kirby would welcome, as would we, any suggestions that the locals have for, you know, how to deliver the information that is most important to you at this forum and anywhere else. So, thanks. I need to find a mouse. This looks like a mouse. I got it. Thanks. So. Updates, what's new at COGCC? The thing that's kind of most exciting to me is right here, this is live. This is a website this is our website, COGCC's homepage. And the daily activity dashboard is something that we rolled out just a couple of months ago. It's over here on the homepage. And if you click on that, it's going to take you to this screen and it says, read this first. And I'm not going to. But then click there to go to this dashboard. This dashboard brings together a vast amount of data on a selected set of topics that we picked out and is sortable. The view that you get when you click on it is the state view. Over here on this side, I can pick out any single county, or I can click on multiple counties if I want to see the data from multiple counties. And down here, these are the topics that we have that you can find out about what is happening in your counties on pending wells, well status, production, inspections, NOAVs, notifications, and spills. So everything that COGCC knows about any of those topics happening in your county, you can pull up with basically the click of a couple of mouse clicks. This data is updated daily, so you are getting a real-time view of all of these subjects. So I'm gonna pick maybe I'll pick inspections. So again, you get a state view first, and this tells you across the state that there were 2,676 inspections in January of this year, 2,664 in February, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, across the way here. This graph shows you our high priority inspections. So we have a risk-based inspection protocol. We document wells based on a set of criteria for those that should be inspected sort of next in line, and this shows our progress on inspecting those high priority wells. So let's go see what's happening. We'll do Garfield County. There's a fair amount of activity in Garfield County. So now I'm just looking at Garfield County statistics for inspections, again, January 17, February 17, et cetera. I've also got multiple years of data across the top here, so I can go back and look at 2014, 2015, et cetera, across the top there. This is all powered by a publicly available software product called Microsoft Power BI. The software has some limitations. There are ways that we can think of. We'd like to spruce this up a little bit, but we're sort of confined to what the software does right now. So we'll continue to, kind of upgrade that as upgrades become available. We originally conceived of this as a tool really for local government. folks to use, the local government designees, elected officials, et cetera, so they can, again, kind of get an instantaneous snapshot of what is going on in their jurisdiction. We kind of quickly realized it might be of interest to the public too, so that's why it's on the homepage of the website, so anybody can get to this. Two sort of quirks about it. The only way you can switch between pages is coming down here and hovering on the page indicator there. Let's go look at well status. So today, well, probably yesterday, there were 54,338 active wells in the state of Colorado. This graph over here shows us how many wells have been plugged and abandoned and how many were dry and abandoned. When they drilled the well, they never got any production. Over here we've got XX, that means they're probably just been permitted, not yet drilled status, and over here are abandoned locations. So again, statewide view, it always defaults to a statewide view. I'll come down here and pick Mesa County. So you can see that Mesa County has 1,089 active wells, 625 plugged and abandoned or dry and abandoned, et cetera. Another point is that over here, these are live links. So you can, if you want to see one of those wells and find out more about that well, you can click on this link. It will take you to what we call our scout card, and you can dig up all the information you want about that well. That is true. There's analogs to that for the inspections, for the NOAVs, for the spills. All of those things have live links that take you kind of back into our database so you can dig through all of this information. So, want you to use it, want you to play with it, want you to tell us how we can make it better. To me, it's amazing how much data this is pulling together for you that you can kind of see in a graphic form and just have at your fingertips. So wanted you all to be aware of that. We've also done some updates to our GIS map that are relevant to local governments in particular. You know, I hope that local governments and the public have kind of landed on the fact that we think advanced planning around oil and gas locations is incredibly important as we all try to balance surface development and mineral development and think about those things as you're approving subdivisions and so forth. And from the oil and gas perspective, one of the earliest indicators that oil and gas is coming to your neighborhood is a spacing order. So as of April 11th, last week, we are now pushing out to local governments announcements about spacing units in your jurisdiction. So spacing units are approved by the Oil and Gas Commission, by an order of the Commission. So after every hearing now, within about a week of that hearing, we will push out to local governments. Any local government who had a spacing order entered in their jurisdiction will get a push notification from us. And then if you're interested, you can go find out where those lands are, how big the acreage is, who asked for the application, all that kind of information. Next Wednesday, we will have 2 additional features of the map will change, I think we think for the better. We're bringing back a feature that we had once and then it, for technological reasons, went away. That is the ability for the public to search our map by address. So right now, we're all about township, section, and range. So I'm just going to do a quick quiz around the room. If you'll just tell me what section, township, and range your house is in. Oh, not so much? Really? How about lat long? Nobody? Okay. So yeah, the public thinks in terms of addresses. Counties think in terms of parcel numbers, it turns out. We don't think in either of those terms. But we're going to try to bridge that gap. So starting next Wednesday, the public will be able to search by address on our map. You go to the map. There's a zoom tool. You click on the zoom tool. It has a drop-down box, says how do you want to search. Choose address, type in your address. The map will take you to that location. The same will be true for parcels. There'll be another option for search by parcel. you put in the parcel, takes you to that parcel. So we are trying to, learn how to communicate in multiple languages. The parcel data we have to import. We have to get that data by counties. All the counties, this is no surprise to any of the counties, everybody uses a different nomenclature, different numbering system. So we have to make that numbering system sort of consistent. We have to find a way to make it work. So we'll bring the county parcel data in kind of over time. I'm going to switch, just talk a little bit about activity. Oil and gas development activity seems to be ticking up a little bit, which is probably mixed blessings in most people's minds. But the way we measure that, one of the ways we measure that is by our permit activity. In February of this year, there were 703 drilling permits submitted to the state. That's compared to the past year running around about 350. It was about twice as many applications as we've seen. In March, there were 510 permits submitted. So 2 data points might not make a trend, but we're certainly keeping our eye on it, and we think that that is likely to continue. The same was true of our location assessment permits. 62 of those submitted in February, 71 in March, highest number of location permits submitted in 2 years. So, early indications maybe of a significant uptick in permitting. I mentioned yesterday, and actually I think I prefer just being in the peanut gallery and getting to pop up and just chime in when I want to, but I talked about plugging wells, and so I ran some statistics yesterday. In 2014, I'm tying this to horizontal well production, the deployment of horizontal well state. Thank you for this slide. Thank you. So first horizontal well in Colorado was drilled in 2009. At that point, there were less than 2% of all wells in the state were horizontal wells. That continues to creep upward, or actually leap upward, and I'll show you a slide in a second. But in 2014, when we're kind of gotten a pretty good horizontal program going, 784 existing vertical wells were plugged that year. That's a pretty good number. In 2015, 660 vertical wells were plugged or in the process of being plugged, and in 2016 that number is 856. So just one of the sort of collateral effects of switching to horizontal development has been the plugging of a lot of these older vertical wells. And Dr. Fleckenstein talked yesterday about the changes in technology that have happened over the years in terms of casing and cementing. So the opportunity to plug some of those older wells, we think, is sort of a positive collateral effect of the transition to horizontal wells. Bob touched on what's happening in the legislature and the funding that is incredibly important to the agency. And I'll just elaborate a tiny bit to say that, again, one of the most tangible effects for us of being understaffed for about the last year and a half or so has been the time it takes us to process permits. And we can point to 3 vacancies out of those that we have right now that really directly affect how long it takes us to process permits. We will backfill those positions as quickly as we can once the money is really very clearly on its way to us. So just wanted to touch on that. And then I'll close out here with just a couple of stats. If you were here yesterday morning for Chris Akers' presentation, you saw a good bit of this data presented in a slightly different way. It's fun to see how, like, a scientist and an economist presents this data compared to an English major. But let me see if I can make that work. All right, here we go. Oil and gas in Colorado, Florence, Colorado, 1890. There is a very long, continuous history of development in the state. We would claim the second oldest commercial well in the country, dating back to about 1860, in this same area around Florence. 54,399 active wells. I showed you that on the dashboard. throughout the state's history, something around 97,000 wells have been drilled, maybe 100,000. Records before 1951, when this agency were created, are a little less certain. But that includes wells that I mentioned when I was looking at the dashboard, wells that were dry and abandoned when they were drilled, or were drilled and then subsequently plugged. So just around the state, about 97,000. 42 counties with at least one active well. Large majority of those in Weld County. Garfield County is the second largest number of active wells, and you can see I put Mesa on there as well. Out of that 54,000, we have about 5,700 horizontal wells. Keep in mind that all of those were drilled sometime after 2009. I'm hoping that everybody in this room pretty much knows this, but there are a lot of people around the state, I think, that don't recognize or realize that Colorado is the 6th largest gas-producing state in the country and the 7th largest oil producer in the country. Chris talked about this yesterday in terms of the percentage of the production in the nation, and it's like 3% oil-ish and 6% gas, something like that. And you might not translate that to being, you know, easily in the top 10 around the country. So, all right, doesn't want to go backwards, that's okay. Oh. All right, let's go forward. Thank you very much. This is a simple bar graph, but the story this tells to me is amazing. So this is the percentage of horizontal wells, number of horizontal wells as a percentage of the total well starts in the state. All right, so go back to 2010, a little technical difficulty. 2010, 4% of all wells started in the state were horizontal, 8.7 the next year, 28% the next year, 58% the next year. So you can see that each year between 2010 and 2013, it's either doubling or tripling. So we're really getting this logarithmic increase in the number or the percent of horizontal wells drilled. So today we're around 8 out of 10 new wells in the state are horizontal. That is an amazingly rapid transformation of technology. And again, almost all of that has happened in Weld County, in the Front Range, which happens to be one of the fastest growing parts of the country, population-wise, in the country, right? Second or first, Weld County is the first or second fastest growing county in the state, and the state is one of the fastest growing states in the nation. So we have this interesting confluence of a transformation, revolutionary transformation in technology coexisting with a population boom of sorts. That has led to this increase in production that Chris talked about yesterday. From 2005 to 2010, it's about a 6% average year-over-year increase, probably mostly resulting from new wells being brought online. And then we get the horizontal production coming online, and we start to see double-digit increases, and we set a state record for production in 2013. If you go to the next slide, 46% increase in 2014 sets a new record. The next slide, another new record in 2015. And so from 2010 to 2015, we basically quadrupled production. And as Chris said yesterday, that streak ended with 2016. But really, the point I would make is that 2016 is still the second highest year of production that the state has ever seen. And that is, again, directly related to the fact that these is horizontal development. So even with fewer wells being started, the production from those wells is such that, you know, we see these kinds of increases. Next slide. What's happening today? You've heard a lot of this, and I'm not going to belabor this at all. I'll go quickly. Mark Matthews talked yesterday about the Boulder County moratorium and the fact that the cumulative short moratoriums added up to greater than 5 years. There is a lawsuit pending filed by the Colorado Attorney General on that, which, as Mark said yesterday, could become moot. A group of citizens petitioned the commission for a rulemaking. The commission denied that request, mainly on grounds that we have always interpreted our statute to require us to balance development with protection of public health, safety, and welfare. The Court of Appeals interpreted our statute differently, and on that basis said that we needed to reconsider that petition for rulemaking, and we are in the process of deciding whether we should take that Court of Appeals decision and ask the Supreme Court to review it. And we need to make that decision by May 4th. Next slide, please. Again, Front Range, lots of activity. Boulder County has adopted new regulations. I would say in a way intentionally sort of pushing the boundaries of where that line is between state authority and local government authority. That's their prerogative to do that, right up until the point that somebody thinks they've crossed that line into the operational conflict arena that Mark talked about yesterday. Lafayette adopted the Climate Bill of Rights. Again, Mark spoke about that. Thornton, as well, is considering new oil and gas regulations. We've seen their draft regulations. I would characterize them somewhat similarly to those of Boulder's, different but similar in terms of wanting to push the boundary in certain places. And several of us who you've heard speak today from the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission are leaving here to drive down to Broomfield and participate in the Broomfield Oil and Gas Committee that jurisdiction is formed to help them consider changes to their comprehensive plan around oil and gas. I think I've got one more. Interesting development of the first bullet here that no one else has spoken about. We have an operator who has filed an application for something called a comprehensive development plan. This is something that our rule contemplates. Rule 216 in the commission rules is a rule that encourages comprehensive development, but it's a rule that has not been used previously. It's sort of been used one time. So this operator's concept is that they would like to do a comprehensive plan for development of about 7,000 acres in Boulder County. And by comprehensive development, it's a look at how to site infrastructure, how to do surface locations to minimize impact, how to, pipe product rather than truck product, things like that. So it is it's going to be a case of first impression in many ways for the commission, precedent setting potentially. Some other operators who own acreage within that boundary are at the moment protesting that. So there are things for all of us to work through. But in general, we're optimistic about this opportunity to encourage and do comprehensive planning. And then in Broomfield, one of the reasons we're going to be there tonight to talk to them is that an operator has proposed about 140 wells off of 4 well pads to develop 16 square miles. The interesting thing here is that this idea of multiple well pads to consolidate surface locations is generally seen as a positive. It's been something that the environmental advocates and the citizen advocates have been a proponent of, so that you have fewer locations, less surface development. But it turns out that maybe there's, again, to the word balance, a tipping point at which, too much of a good thing. If we have 40 wells on a single pad in some proximity to residential neighborhoods, is that the best way to develop? And that's just something we're going to have to sort out and work through. And if 40 on a pad is too many, you just have to realize that sort of the analog to that is we need another pad somewhere else. So maybe you end up with 2 20-well pads instead of one 40-well pad. And needless to say, both of those scenarios have their own challenges. So I think that's all I've got. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Ms. Stacks, and I guess unless Larry will give me a ride, I'll stay and answer questions too.